Anden Tsawe Lama Rinpo Che Dage Je Wo Be Me Den Shu Ne Ga Den Chen Bu Go Ne Je Song De Go Song Tu Je Ngo Zhu Tsa Do So Sanje Che Dang Cui Je Che Nam La Chang Chu Pa Do Da Ni Jap Sui Chi Da Ge Xin So Je Be So Nam Jin Zhu Lai Pen Cer San Jian Zhu Bai Shu San Jie Che Dang Cui Je Che Nam La Chang Chu Pa Do Da Ni Jap Sui Chi Da Ge Xin So Je Be So Nam Jin Zhu Lai Pen Cer San Jian Zhu Bai Shu San Jie Che Dang Cui Je Che Nam La Chang Chu Pa Do Da Ni Jap Sui Chi Da Ge Xin So Je Be So Nam Jin Zhu Lai Pen Cer San Jian Zhu Bai Shu Sem Che Tam Che Dewa Dang Devi Jo Dang Den Barai Choroi Che Sem Che Tam Che Dong Han Dang Dong Han Je Jo Dang Chawarai Choroi Che Sem Che Tam Che Dong Han Me Pe Dewa Dang Men Chawara Choroi Che Sem Che Tam Che Nyerin Cha Dang Da Travi Dong Nyam La Ne Bara Choro Chi Lai Ke Dang Le Dang De Jin Ki Zhubong Ta Dang Me Ye Ke Nam Roa Gen Je Zhan Nam Chue Song Tam Che Ge Da Da Ge Chue Den To Sa Shi Bu Shi Su Shi Me Do Zhang Ri Ra Ni Xi Ni Di Jian Ban San Jie Xin De Mi Te Pu Luai Ru Ke Nam Da Xin De Je Ba Shu Omong Guru Ba Da Bodhi Sato Sa Pa Re Wa Ra Re Na La Men Ra Bet Sam Sama Tra Sa Pa Ran Sama Ya Shi Re Hum
Virtuous activities naturally increase with clarity of mind. Conviction in the teaching arises, cultivate seclusion. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Loved ones who have long kept company will part. What created with difficulty will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of this life. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you keep their company, your three poisons increase. Your activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating decline, and may make you lose your love and compassion. Give up at friends. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you rely on them, your faults come to an end, and your good qualities grow like the waxing moon. Cherish spiritual teachers even more than your own body. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Found himself in the jail of cyclic existence. What worldly God can give you protection? Therefore, when you seek refuge, take refuge in the three jewels that will not betray you. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. The subduer said all the unbearable suffering of that reverses the fruit of wrongdoing. Therefore, even at the cost of your life, never do wrong. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Like the dew on the tip of a blade of grass, pleasures of the three worlds last only a while and then vanish. Aspire to the never-changing supreme state of liberation. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When your mothers who loved you since time without beginning are suffering, what use is your own happiness? Therefore, to free limitless living beings, develop the altruistic intention. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Perfect Buddhas are born from the thought to help others. Therefore, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone out of strong desire steals all your wealth or has it stolen, dedicate to him your body, possessions, and your virtue, past, present, and future. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone tries to cut off your head when you haven't done the slightest thing wrong, out of compassion, take all her misdeeds upon yourself. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone broadcasts all kinds of unpleasant remarks about you throughout the 3,000 worlds, in return with a loving mind speak of his good qualities. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Though someone may deride and speak bad words about you in a public gathering, looking on her as a spiritual teacher, bow to her with respect. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if a person for whom you care like your own child regards you as an enemy, cherish, especially like a mother does her child who is stricken by sickness. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If an equal or inferior person disparages you out of pride, place her as you would your spiritual teacher with respect on the crown of your head. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. So you lack what you need and are constantly discouraged, afflicted by dangerous sickness and spirits. Without discouragement, take on the misdeeds and the pain of all living beings. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. So you become famous and many bow to you, and you gain riches equal to Vajravana. See that worldly fortune is without essence and be unconceited. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. While the enemy of your own anger is unsubdued, though you conquer external foes, they will only increase. Therefore, with the militia of love and compassion, subdue your own mind. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you indulge, the more thirst increases. Abandon at once those things which bring clinging attachment. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Whatever appears is your own mind. Your mind from the start was free from fabricated extremes. Understanding this, do not take to mind inherent signs of subject and object. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you encounter attractive objects, though they seem beautiful like a rainbow in summer, don't regard them as real and give up attachment. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. All forms of suffering are like a child's husband and dream, holding illusory appearances to be true makes you weary. Therefore, when you meet with disagreeable circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When those who want awakening must give even their body, there's no need to mention external things. Therefore, without hope for return or any fruition, give generously. This is the the practice of bodhisattvas. Without ethical conduct, you can't accomplish your own well-being. So wanting to accomplish others is laughable. Therefore, without worldly aspiration, safeguard your ethical conduct. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas who want a wealth of virtue, those who harm are like a precious treasure. Therefore, towards all cultivate fortitude without hostility. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Seeing even hearers in solitary, realizers who accomplish only their own good, strive as if to put out a fire on their head for the sake of all beings. Make enthusiastic effort, the source of all good qualities. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Understanding that disturbing emotions are destroyed by insight with serenity. Cultivate concentration which surpasses the four formless absorptions. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Since the five perfections without wisdom cannot bring perfect awakening, along with skillful means cultivate the wisdom which does not conceive the three spheres as real. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If you don't examine your own errors, you may look like a practitioner, but not act as one. Therefore, always examining your own errors, rid yourself of them. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If through the influence of disturbing emotions you point out the faults of another bodhisattva, you yourself are diminished. So don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Reward and respect cause us to quarrel, and make hearing, thinking, and meditating decline. For this reason, give up attachment to the households of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Harsh words disturb the minds of others and cause deterioration in the bodhisattva's conduct. Therefore, give up harsh words which are unpleasant to others. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Habitual disturbing emotions are hard to stop through counteractions. Armed with antidotes and guards of mindfulness and mental alertness, destroy disturbing emotions like attachment at once as soon as they arise. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. In brief, whatever you are doing, ask yourself, what's the state of my mind? With constant mindfulness and mental alertness, accomplish others' good. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. To remove the suffering of limitless beings, understanding the purity of the three spheres, dedicate the virtue from making such effort to awakening. This is the practice of bodhisattvas.
Page 36. Which is the plot translation. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo awakening for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. I will constantly practice holding them dear. Whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depths of my heart I will respectfully hold others as supreme. In all actions I will examine my mind. At the moment a disturbing attitude arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. Whenever I meet a person of that nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear as if I had found a precious treasure. When others out of jealousy mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have placed great trust hurts me very badly, I will practice seeing that person as my supreme teacher. In short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings. My mothers I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings. Without these practices being defiled by the saints of the eight worldly concerns, and perceiving all phenomena as illusory,
I will practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma.
Well, I like the chanting. Beautiful. Everybody can do lots of memorize. And I was asking Venerable Tuji, why we just chanting all day today? He said, no, you have to teach something. But I already mentioned and talked to you brief about refugees, how important the refugee coming to Buddhism, and so forth. And so I don't think I have any other more to tell unless you have some question. But I do like to talk about today's because the one of holiest day, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni gave a first teaching, return of Dharma. And so maybe I just say some brief biography about Lord Shakyamuni Buddha, because I did notice that someone like young lady today and didn't know anything, just chanting what it's about, why is it some, and if they knows what Buddhism is, what Lord Buddha is, a little bit background might help, and some of people you maybe just remind something. So as you all know, I don't need to tell the all ordained one, they know. And the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was born in, I think it's like 2,500-600 years ago. There's different version of different talk. And anyway, that many years ago. And he chose to become the parents. There is many clients in India and Nepal at those times. He chose the clan, it's the Sakya clan, in the king Sakya clan. So he was born in Lumbini, and the king Junadatta and Queen Mayadeva. And so they didn't have the son for a long time, and prayed. Finally, they had a son. And when Queen received, you call it, constituted Queen's stomach, she had a very special dream with a white elephant with a 6 tusks, and appeared and received her stomach. From that on, of course, Lord Shakyamuni. And then 9 months, 10 days after Shakyamuni was born. But in those times in India, when the special kings and they're having the special son, they have to return to the queen's parents' home. So she was going to give a birth, and she's going to go to her parents. On the way, didn't reach her parents' home, and on the way, it's Lumbini, which today is the one of the holiest place. Many of you have been there. And she gave a birth. And when she gave a birth, it's not like a regular birth, like we giving from the womb, but he came out with just opened and right side under the here, what do you call it, arm, and opened, and he appeared. And as soon as he got out from the queen, and he stepped 7 steps each direction and talked. I'm the best in this world, and each step found a lotus. And you still like people who goes pilgrimage in India, especially in Bodh Gaya, they have on the rock that kind of example of teaching how, all this. So after the king was very, very happy, he thought, I have the best son, conquer the whole world with the power. And so and the king was very happy and protected in the palace and not let her go out and seeing all the outside world, and had everything that he wished for, all the luxuries and all kind of. And then after he reached this teenage, there's all kind of play mats, all kind of games and all things. Of course, he always went. And then finally he said, instead of his staying in the gate in the palace, he has to go a little bit to conquer outside. And king didn't want him to go, but didn't listen. You know, teenagers don't listen parents that much. So he went out with riding elephant, a very powerful king. So that at the time he did see the old-aged man and also dead body and sick person. So he never know anything about what those are. Then questioned his attendant, and he explained why it's old age. Everybody have to old, die, and everybody gets sick, and everybody, you know, the getting old and sickness and dying. And that's the part, that's the, you know, like human. You were even I said it earlier, human element, the best opportunity, we are really lucky to, but we have the 4 major sufferings: aging, birth, aging, sickness, and death. That's everybody has. But plus then we have, you know, the untimely death, all kind of accident, or the parting from your loved one, suffering, and or losing all your wealth or death. You know, there's so many sufferings. We every day. That's why it's part of the refugee called jitpa, tepa, iche. So the 3 things we have to remind. We always, no matter how happy you are now, how happy, still, or back there you worry. Worry family, worry your life, worry all around what's good. Even the driving and even the walking, always that's the human suffering, part of suffering. And saying, so anyway, and so when he saw that, he said, I'm not going to just enjoy luxuries in the kingdom, and I want to do something to get out from this. Of course, nobody can get out. And the assistant said, nobody, it just has to go. This is what is. So then at that time, king already made him try to make happy to take the consort, a queen, and he has a son, son Dachenzing, which is one of the 16 arahats. And his king has a son. But he still said, I'm not going to spend just selfish way this, I want to do something. So he sneaked out from East Gate with an attendant and a horse to escape from the palace to want to find what is the real life without the suffering. So he soon as he got out, and of course there is the we call 4 directions of the deity, where the soul left up the horse and got in India just shortly, not like otherwise it probably takes days to get from Nepal to India by walking and riding horse. But he got in India what they call Namda Tupas. Namda Tupas is a chote, which is what is statue called? No, stupa. Stupa Namda Tum. Today you can still visit there. That's why it's a part of the sample when we give the refugee vow. we take a little bit piece of your hair to cut with a scissor, and that's because the Lord Shakyamuni himself went Namta Tupa stupa, and he cut it himself, his hair there, so ordained himself, and told his attendant, take my jewelries and the horse back to parents, tell I'm no longer coming, and I'm going to be find what is to get out from the suffering. So he studied, and he studied with started Hindi practitioner for a long time, just practiced, and then he realized that's kind of just self yourself. It didn't work. So he went to Nagarjuna River, and he did bath, and so by that time he was a very, very skinny, dark, hairy, so forth. And so after he shaved and have a bath, and then the Sujata, one of the caretaker, cow's caretaker, young lady brought milk with lots of cream and nutrition, offered him. So he gained back. But those 5 eccentric Hindi, those laughed at him. Now you're taking food from a woman, you bathed, you cut your hair, you're not practitioner at all. So they just laughed and left. But then he sat there and meditate 6 years. And it's saying in the book says that 1 grain of rice and 1 drop of water a day. I don't know exactly that really, but he's 6 years. And then he already have a game to enrich enlightenment. So he went to, from Nagarjuna River to Bodh Gaya is a few miles, very short distance. So he went there and put the kusha grass on the ground, and he sat there and enlightened. And so kusha grass in Buddhism teaching is very important. Certain because Buddha enlightened in kusha grass. There's lots of teachings, mandala, we use that kusha grass, especially mandala initiations like Kalachakra, so forth, we sleep on the kusha grass. And that's because of the important. And I remember my memory is when I was young, my duty was making butter lamps and offering water cups of cleaning every day. That's my great uncle who is very yogi. And he said, I have to do that daily. So I was doing this, and in winter time, bowls get ice, and sometimes I eat that ice. It's really nice, and have to take out every day, sometimes very cold. And then especially make butter lamps. In Tibet now you can make candles and all kinds of these lights and all so forth. But in those times, the only thing we make butter lamps. And melted butter, take all those junks out and pour in butter lamp. And that's wick you have to have. And this is not just any wick. You have to have really procedure, special. And wicks has to be in kusha grass. And we don't grow in Tibet, have to get from India. And then you have to have a measurement is for how if it's too high, it's bad for your health or your your teacher's life. If it's too short, it's just, not, you will have a problem with the sickness and so forth. It just has to be right. So then when you're doing this wick, you have to be certain turning the clockwise and on the distance and the top, how much you put. And all this, I had a really good lesson with my uncle. And I was surprised myself later, because when even the monastery monks and nuns, when we have my uncle's monastery in Nepal, and there's a nun who done butter lamp all her lifetime doing monastery. I went to see, not quite what I was doing. So I tried to say, she's much older than me. I said, well, I did this, and she was surprised. Because those has to be, if you do that, you'll have a longevity, pure, itchy. Just for example, like when we do the offerings, for 5 offerings for like water, drinking water, washing water, incense, flour, food, we do, and the butter lamps and lamps, especially lamps, since we don't have any of these commercial lamps. You have to visualize this butter lamp. This lamp is lights for many, not only just this room or not only this around here in Spokane, but the whole world, and visualize, so you can light it. Thinking like that. It's the same thing when you do the music and offering, you all visualize these things. But since so, like I said, the Kusha grass is how important that is. So the Kusha grass, and we use this, and so and then Buddha, enlightened Bodh Gaya, and he's setting the goodness for the earth, and he's sitting is like Buddha with a blessing, and you see the Buddha, and all of this. There's many manifestations, a different way, but this is the way how he enlightened. And after he enlightened, and then he started teaching solo. And he visited back to his kingdom, and his parents become the Buddhist. And he's, right after Buddha was born, his mother passed away a week after. So his aunt, mother's sister, who took care of him. And so then he also did see this, how difficult the woman to become full ordained, because woman has more sickness and more sensitivity and more attracted with other men or all around. So that's why he didn't give the full ordained even his own auntie. But later he did give, and so that's why what is come from Geloma, right? Geloma vow, which is all the venerable Tibetan children that you have. And that never came in Tibet, that teaching. It's still in China. It's China, Taiwan? Yeah, Korean, yeah. But it's never had it in Tibet somehow, or hopefully we'll get it. And that's so important. And so monks, yes, they have ordained whole, yes. So then, and so when after his mother passed away, after he enlightened, he did visit his mother's realm. She was born in God realm, give a teaching. And this is one of the holiest, holy days when he descended from heaven to, I think 6 months he was gone. So and those holidays, like I said, when you become Buddhist, those holidays you pick, if you somehow may not know which days are those, because you don't have a Tibetan calendar, lunar calendar, but you still know new moon and full moon, and those are always holiday. And then a special full moon, like in the Sakya monastery, we have a special new moon, and we practice Vaitara and medicine Buddha, and a full moon we do those the Dharma Mandala, and many times in the special days, then we have a lot, 37 Bodhisattva, and we do the new name and so forth. So like I said, when we're doing like this, and that's certain special day is accumulation merit is tremendously. And the same way, if you do some unvirtuous things, It also goes that way, so we're very careful those days. And so that's why we, like lay practitioner like us, and we cannot practice so much and become a do retreat or become vegetarian or not eating the whole 3 meals, like we do just those days, like I do those days only. And anyway, so helps tremendously. And then after Buddha Shakyamuni enlightened, and then he gave the teachings, Varanasi, Banaras, and Bochu Peak. And most teaching he also done, of course, is Nalanda. And those places, like I mentioned earlier, those holiest places, if you are Buddhist, we are Buddhist followers, and if you go once, it is really important. If you can't go all 8 places, but 4 major places, well, a great benefit, great blessing. And you also know, then feel, I'm Buddhist, I have been all the holy site, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, even he said so. If those who come to see where I was born and I was enlightened and giving teaching, when I passed in nirvana, my body and my physical body is not there, but my blessings are always there. And that's his word. So anyway, then after and the teachings, tremendously teachings all over, and conquered many non-Buddhists, became a Buddhist, and then finally he left his body and he passed in nirvana in Kushinagara. And that's the place, every time I go, I can't control. I have motion, very big motion. Just cry. And one time I was crying there, and the caretaker and said, he was really, said, why are you crying? I said, well, I don't know exactly. It's just, so he took out from, those very fancy, brocaded, so they put in the offerings from Thailand or Chinese with Buddha's head. And he took one of those, he said, you have this. He gave me, I have it in my house there. It's so nice. And so anyway, he passed the nirvana. And so then he, after many years, of course, his nephew, Gungao, they all given the teachings. And then the 16 arahats, after he left this world, but 16 arahats, he left representatives to holding and keeping his teaching, which we have our shrine room, all the statues is beautifully done. So I mentioned you this. And those beings, Bodhisattva or Buddha and Bodhisattva, his representatives, and we believe still living in the world. They're not passed away in the different realms still. That is why some fortunate beings who goes to Mount Kailash or some holy places, like some place I heard in Thailand, some mountain area, some place you can hear the bells, doje, or bells and drum, damaru and tinsha sound. And that telling they're still living, they're praying. But our vision, we have so much distorted vision, we cannot see, but they are still living, those 16 arahats. And they are enlightened, practicing his teaching, and sincerity, all from the believed, his not only just believe, but follows his teaching. Like even this is enlightened with just swooping in the temple. So the manifestations carries a different, some broom, some just stupa, some all kind of, you see. And there were 2 kind of versions in a Tibetan version, it's more like many look like the lamas and the statues and with all the religious art. But the Chinese versions, you should see, they are just like anybody in Vegas, like somebody offered a piece of cloth, they patches on their clothes with it, you know. The Chinese versions, and they are really, because of course they live for 100,000 years living, so they are a very long beard and hair, and all kind of, you can see that. And we have such a monastery, one of the Chinese version, old Chinese version. We found in Seattle some big museum, some kind of museum or store. They closed. We bought that, so we have that. And then, of course, the Chinese version is a statues is a necessary in the Tibetan. Have to have inside. Without inside or blessed consecration, it's nothing. And so we had all the proper inside and consecrated. And so it's such a monastery anyway, is consecrated in His Holiness Dalai Lama. And when we started, Dalai Lama came, and many, many other lamas came, including Sopa Rinpoche, Sajja Tenzin, all the. So we have that, Chinese version. And so of course, 16 arahats and they were living in those times in India, but invited to China was the invitation was we call Hashan with the Tibetan call. I think the Westerners call the laughing Buddha. That's not Buddha. That's just the being who is very, very devoted to Buddhism, and give all wealth, invited all the 16 arahats in China, and his patrons. So it's, every time we do touching things, it's good luck because he has power, he has wealth, he has a lot of inviting. It's not Buddha. And I say that I have laughing Buddha. That's we call Hashan. And then sometimes you see the lots of children around because all wishful feeling and things. And so anyway, so this is the kind of brief history of life story in the Buddha. And then we do, when you're Buddhist, we will do the 12 deeds and 12 deeds in the Buddhist, here. Praise of 12 explore deeds of Lord Buddha. And you have in English, do you? This would be very good to do today. And it's the recent, and this is really, it's tellings and explanations about how the short, but many places in India, those special holy, and in Banaras, Varanasi, there's a big temple with a whole about life story in Buddha on the wall, and then Buddha's tooth inside on the bottom there too, kept this too. So it's good to know when it's you're Buddhist. It's good to know a little background. It's help. So I'm sure that many of you will know, but sometimes it reminds who Buddha was, how he gave it to, that's why it's the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and the Buddha we following his teaching, and that's how we try to get away from the samsara world. So, but whenever you do practice, whenever you worship or whatever you do, it has to do from the heart. And I tell my students, not how many or how much you do, but how you do it. That's really important. Like special lay practitioners don't have much time, and they're doing. But when you do, you really do it from your mindfulness and from your heart, whatever you do. Even you want to help the other beings that are suffering, your compassion, you may not, I don't have anything gift, I don't have anything healing, but you pray, your compassion, with what can I help, somehow thinking, and that's a tremendous benefit, especially if you are Buddhist. That's the part of our commitments. So it is really important, those things, thinking. So if you do this 12 deeds, and that will be really good. Is there transliteration?
No, we just have the English.
Okay, it's just doing. You chanted beautifully. I like the sound. I like sound very much.
We haven't chanted this one before, so it'll be something new.
That's fine. It was just sound. I like it.
No.
Yes, and then after when we finish, we can do the maybe mantras. And with the chanting a little bit. Okay.
Sakya clan, you vanquished Mara's forces while others could not. Your body radiant like a mountain of gold. King of the Shakyas, homage at your feet. You first produced the thought of Bodhi and completed the two collections of merit and wisdom to become the protector of sentient beings. Through your vast deeds in this age, I praise you benefited the gods, and knowing it was time to tame others, to you descended from the celestial realm as an elephant followed plan of your birth and entered the womb of Queen Maya. Homage to the sea as you were born of the prince in fortune, and from being Negro Brahma and Indra praise you with your supreme arts and convert your body lineage. Homage to the sea as a powerful youth lion amongst humans. You showed skill in Naga and Maga, vanquished all people inflated with arrogance, unrivaled one. Homage to the sea, by skillful means to conform to the conduct of the world and to avert any censure. You govern the kingdom and listen to the retinue and clean. Homage to the sea, samsaric activities have no essence. You left the householder's life and went forth and became fully renounced at the stupa of great purity. Homage to the sea, you practiced austerities for 6 years on the banks of the Narayana awakening and perfect in effort. Attain the supreme meditative stability. Homage to the sea to bring to fruition the efforts you make from beginning with silent beliefs sat beneath the Bodhi tree in Magadha, fully awakened to perfect Bodhi. Homage to the sea, the observing beings with compassion in Varanasi and other holy places. You turned up Wheel Dharma, setting disciples on the three miracles. Homage to the sea, you vanquished the Maras and the Brahma, put an end to the erroneous wrangling of Devadatta, the 6 heretical teachers and others stayed victorious. Homage to the sea, qualities unmatched in the 3 worlds. Sravasti, you displayed wondrous miracles and spread the teachings and the great offerings to you. Homage to the sea, taught the lazy to practice the Dharma and of your silent Shagari manifested the perishing of the deathless body body and entered nirvana. Homage to the sea, because in reality there is no destruction and no futures and resounding to the world by these doctrines, brilliance like sunlight by harmony among the doctrines holders. Long may the Dharma abide, may all be auspicious.
Of the mantra. Beautiful. That's good. So the last part is when Lord Buddha Shakyamuni passed away in nirvana, and he left at the body with cremated with lots of relics and he also said that have to divide his relics for 8 Buddhist countries, and those has all stupas like Thailand, Cambodia, Japan, all the divided, and then Indian share in the Kushnagara you can visit. So that's what the Buddha's short, brief life story.
As you mentioned, you've lived a long time and you've had a lot of experiences. Can you share with us what you have learned from your life?
My life is, well, that takes a few days though.
But what you've learned,
joking.
conclusions, not necessarily your story, but what you've learned that you can pass on to us so that we can learn
Well, I was born with a Buddhist family, very devoted family, and my ancestors and all the, I was born in East Tibet, and near is one of the Sakya monastery, Thalung monastery to call, and my great uncles and all the ancestors were head of the monastery, and they are lamas and monastery take care and all. And then my mother's father's side was the doctor way back in time with Linkasa, like sometime way back. And that's where we came from with the Doka. And they said is Linkasa's personal physician. And so anyway, so I was raised in a small town, maybe 50 families, in a big monastery near. And so those times we don't have any girls' school at all. And I was sent by my uncle to boys' school, and boys who are going to be the monk or taking care of the government workers. So so I sent it with the boys. There was 8 boys and myself, and I was a very lonely girl there. And you know the Tibetan and the boys are always special, and so and I studied. Our teacher is the distant relative of my family, so he took good care. But in the monastery, we are studying in the monastery. Every day I go in the morning to monastery and come back. In the monastery, it's kind of an asset outside of a gate. So go there, and way I learned is how to respect of going to monastery. You may meet monks or even some monk leaders, so you have to very respect. I was always afraid to go to. And so I learned that. And then also I learned to patient with the boys. And one time there was in the monastery, like every centers in the monastery, same way, they do offerings for somebody deceased or somebody sick, or food offering, monetary offering. And our case, we have, they call a mangja, which is all monks who have special delicacy, rice soup. Rice is, we don't grow in Tibet, that's a very delicacy. And so, and then tea or pastry, or the monks get. But since I'm a woman, girl, and all the monks in my class get, I don't get any. So I was young, and I get really kind of sad, and they look so good. And then some monks, the little monks tease, see, it's boy, we get this, you don't get any. And sometimes my teacher shares a little bit. But then one day I went back to my uncle. I said, I'm not going to go to school anymore. I quit because I'm really, it's very hard for me. So my uncle said, son, that's good, because you have to go back. He said, that's what their offerings, monastery, they bring, says somebody died or somebody's sick, and brings that, you have to pray for. If you don't pray, it's eating like poison in your stomach. You cannot digest, you will have problem. So you're not getting any of that, very good. So you have to go back. And if the teacher give you a little piece of things, do lots of mantra, 100 syllable or manipemo. And you're very good, you're the best in that class. So I was like, oh, maybe I go back. So that's how I learned things. And then, of course, then my aunt is a nun, and we have a nunnery, and every summer she come out to help the family. We have lots of yaks and sheep and things, and winter time she goes like 6-7 months in nunnery, so I go there quite often, and I learn a lot. I was youngest in there, so nuns take good care. And this nunnery has no water. You have to go outside to bring water, and no electricity. We have to make butter lamp, and no heating system, nothing. But it's very pleasant, and the nuns chant almost all day. Mostly chanting about the Chenrisi. And the Chenrisi has so many different mantras, and with the chanting, I loved it. And so I pretend I want to be, like a nun. I wear nun's clothes, tied my hair with a towel, but unfortunate, I never want to become nun, because I think it's all of us have some kind of desire. My problem is I want to wear jewelry. Nuns can't wear. I still do. That's my biggest problem. And somehow that helped when we skipped Tibet. I have 3 sons. Youngest one is like 13 months, can't even walk, have to carry in the back. We crossed the Himalaya. So I had lots of jewelry on my hand also. And when we reached border in Bhutan, and we couldn't carry anything, we're together. We came. And so lots of monks even died. Starvation, there's no food. And there's, Bhutanese won't let it go through. And what we brought from Tibet is run out, and they stopped in the border. And I sold a lot of my jewelry with a bag of rice that survived. Today I thought if one of those pieces of jewelry, I can live with it. But it's gone, right? That did help. So anyway, I had a really hard time. But what I really, my experience, I always, believe with all the teaching, Buddha. And sometimes I believe so much from the elders. I love older people. And in Tibet, like I said, my time is no school, so we young people, my girlfriend, we always learned from chanting. I learned some chanting, but in the monastery, they only give you the chantings and mantras and memorize lots. I don't even know what it was meaning much, just the chant. But in grandparents, they teach you all the 21 prayers of Dara mantra, and so all the Chenrisi mantra, and the stories about their stories, life stories, the stories of the lamas, stories of how they memorize. And that I believed it a lot, and that helped me. If you believe it, you really comes forward. And later, some of this realized, and that's and then whenever I had a lot of dreams when I was younger, and it's a funny dreams, like I fly with the house with the wing, and I am on the top of very, very tall buildings, and there's no such even never heard about airplane. But later I realized I'm going the airplane, and when I got in New York, I see down the buildings just like my dream. So, but when I telling my girlfriends and my parents, they said, "Oh, you always have dreams." They don't believe me much. It's just talk too much. But my uncle, he really took it serious. Sometimes he write down, and he knows what I had like future. This uncle is not Deshung Rinpoche's uncle, who was a very famous Jew practitioner. And he really adored me. He's the one who sent me to school. And anyway, so, and then I went to pilgrimage when I was 13. And in the pilgrimage, when we go, especially pilgrimage in, most in Uzang, which is the where the Milarepa and the Bama-Sambhava cave, all of those in, but in Tibetan, when you go pilgrimage, you have to be sacrificed. You have very little eating, walk a lot, more harder, like we have heating here. This is good. It's good for us. Everything enjoys not benefit much. So then I was soiling my feet. We had one horse carry our food. And sometime in the summer, in those times in the summer, there's lots of sand. And the wind, sand comes in the eye, and says, though I can't walk because I was swallowing my feet. I still remember those. And then my aunt said, you have to sit on the horse because you cannot walk, and it's dangerous. So I thought, how much distance I missed that pilgrimage. Pilgrimage, you have to go around, right? I really worried. I want to go back sometime for that. I'm thinking, I believe it very strongly. And then I went to pilgrimage. I think I'm, even my age, I'm 80 years old. 80, over 80, March, 80 years old. And I'm a pretty good health. And so I think it's a part of pilgrimage. And I believed a lot of Triple Gem and guide. And good teachers are always protected. And then after pilgrimage, we visited in Sakya, where my uncle Deshung Rinpoche was there, and receiving teaching from the Sakya teaching, which is the Dachi Rinpoche's father, Ngawang Tudo Wangchu. So he wasn't finished his teaching. There are lots of teachings needed. Every Tibetan Sakya set lamas have to go receive certain teachings from their leader, from the Sakya, main Sakya, and then go back they teach. So, and then we were there. And that's how I met Dachi Rinpoche. But so then I married him after, I think, 2 years later. And then we visited in East Tibet. And when he said, you marry, I said, if you go back in my home. And that's kind of impossible by horse. Very hard to those times. Only horse by, like take maybe 2 months or so. So then we went back to East Tibet. We lived in East Tibet, all calm, Minya, Dege, Lugaba, Gahu, Chamdo, all these 5 years. And we stayed most in Dege, receiving the injunctions and Chujilot teachings from all, because Dachi Rinpoche's father passed away. He didn't receive the whole thing of the teachings. He received the Lamdre things, but all more things. So that's where we went. We lived. So, like I said, of course, I received the most what he received, and I don't recall I kept up all the practice, but I got the blessing for all those lamas. And those times, those holiest lamas, all kind of. Before Chinese came in Tibet. So I met the many, not only those Sakya lamas, but it's lamas all over the Gelupa Lama, Nyingma, Sakya, and Gaju, all I made because Dachi Rinpoche receiving teachings, teachings extended, the Dachi Rinpoche gave teachings, all. So then when I was in Tibet, I don't have to do things. I only taking care of the children, and that's the Sakya Dhamma's duty. Just burying the children, taking care of the sons. But then came to America, had to do everything, right? So anyway, I had more time, and I kept up my practice as much as I can. I went to retreats and did all. Unlucky, you may be interested, many of you know, in Tibet, there's teachers, lamas, they call married lama and not married lama. They call it ngakpa. And then the Sakya set is the heritage, lineage. And when the Sakya Lama died, they don't search reincarnation. They're supposed to be born back to their family. And that is why it's over 1,000 years, founder of Sakya Gonga Nyingbo. It's because they are unique and descended from celestial realm, and three brothers landed in the world, and younger brother remained and married a human, and that's the lineage. So it has to have a son, and son to son. That's what up to today. When I married, I remember Dajjal Rinpoche's father giving the ceremony, and they changed my name, and also the Jamyang Pema Paj Puti, which means the Lord of Wisdom, and bring all sons. And so I had to do some practice, and then I was worried. My family were very worried because I didn't have son. It's necessary. He has to bring the second, third wife until bring son. That's what it's Sakya Tenzin. And Sakya Tenzin Rinpoche is mother was a second wife, and his father. His first wife didn't have a son, so she brought her sister in. So the sister's son. So that's so. If I didn't have a son, there is no, way that I remained the Dagmo maybe, but it's not, special there anymore. So then within a few years, I had 5 sons. That's enough, right? And so anyway, it's my youngest one. I want a daughter. Everybody said son, son, son. I want a daughter, but another son. So I have 5 sons. So what is the most experience is it's really life is not easy, up and down. You all know that. I've been sad, but as you have your, what I would say, privilege, you have your freedom, you have your power, what you do, is hold that and believe yourself. That is really important. And in like self-esteem, I would say, and I always have thinking, I can do this, I can, it's sometimes not easy to do, but it's mostly in your mind. And then, of course, the triple gem, I believe, and whatever I'm thinking, if something I'll do the best I can, comes not good, obstacles or something, then I think, oh, maybe this is my previous life obstacle. Maybe I have some obstacles removing. I never blame the Dharma. If something comes good, this is blessing. That's all you have to think too. It's sometimes Dharma practitioners is not perfect. There's lots of obstacles comes. And when more obstacles is good. And that means it's something going well. As long as not taking the whole thing off. Sometimes obstacles over, then it's not good. Just hold it there. You probably heard sometimes the lamas giving teachings and the people want to come far away, broke car on the way, or some family had emergency had to go. Those are the obstacles. And more that than regular just sitting. And sometimes you think, my husband doesn't tell the students, and sometimes they come to special practice, and instead of just, you can go beach, you can go hiking anytime, just come practice. Sometimes my son says, oh, I'm too tired, but never tired, would play games or watching TV, go to golf or something. That's never tired. Yeah, so that's really it's important. But and then also I also practice a lot impermanent, and so you can hear everything around impermanent. Every day you can hear. So that's really we always think. Planned for next year, year after, even in the bed, sick in hospital, plan some things. So it's really impermanent, it's very important. That's the Buddha's teaching, impermanent. So it's, and then the loving compassion, that's the teaching of the Buddha. And that's the Buddha's practitioner's teaching too. It's not loving to only others, loving yourself. If you don't love yourself, take care of yourself, you can't do others. You have to do the both. You have to do both, taking care, and this is really important. And just like say, pray, everything goes well. Triple Gems blessing, my root Lama teaches, Guru's teaching, and helping me, guiding me, and a blessing. Something goes wrong, maybe this is removing part of my obstacles or my karma. And the karma is exactly what? Karma is exactly the lei jumre. Sometimes it doesn't work, the English. They use actions about causal condition. The karma, some people think the karma is you can't do anything about it. This is karma. That's not it. That's not it. Karma, if the karma lei jumre, like lei jumre, if not ripe, you still can do it. Yes, you can feel peace. You can do like just. That's why we have in the Buddhism. There's so many different manifestations, deities, like for health, wealth, longevity, whatever helps for necessary, whatever we need. So like in Manjushri when? Day after tomorrow? That's the wisdom and Buddha and wisdom. So give a wisdom.
When I went to take my Vajrasattva initiation, the Venerable suggested that I practice the King of Prayers, and I did that. And I won't go into the details, but every single obstacle disappeared, and it was just like I was escorted there in a limo. it was that profound. And I mean, it was like, what planet am I on? You couldn't believe I stayed with some friends, and they lived at the end of the line. I got on the bus, and I went to the other end of the line. It was where he was holding at Long Beach Center, and the Dalai Lama was giving the initiation. And I just walked in, and it was a done deal. I came back. It was just amazing.
Yes, and the more you do, of course, Vajrasattva is wonderful, 100 syllable mantra, and it purifies. Or we said that generally in our, we do like 21 times, and that removes whatever we do the daily, sometimes knowing and not knowing, and our the sense comes with verbally or mindfully, all kind of purifies. And the first 7 is kind of purifies. Second 7 is whatever is on the way, is obstacles coming, and third and 7 is the protecting us. That's kind of a Dhamma's protection as we do. Vajrasattva is very good to practice. And also the long mantra is 100 syllables. I'm sure many of you have memorized. But even you can't do so, just Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, just a few, the short one you can do. That's good. Very good. Like I said, yes, there's more obstacles when you do. But then later you realize obstacles less. In the beginning, try to stop. There is always good things, always evil there. Even Lord Buddha Shakyamuni has, before he enlightened. And he has lots of, what called, they mean I would call it there in the English word. And not Hindus. He sent his daughters with beautiful Mara. So, they try to stop and try to shoot. And all the turn to, instead of arrow, turn to a flower. Because you have just hold that, believe that, and it doesn't harm you. But it can no, I can't do this. This is bad for me. If I'm doing it, it's too many more obstacle. Stop. Then that obstacle took over. Then it's very bad. So many times it happens. Yes.
I have a sort of a motto. Adversity isn't really adversity, it's an opportunity to learn. And that's what if there's a hitch in my get along, I can, every time there's something I learn from it that I can use
Good.
the next day. So I'm constantly
Very
trying
good.
to accumulate knowledge.
I'm glad. It's really faith is the main part of your practice. There's many stories in the Tibetan Lamas tell us how important is faith. If you don't have, I kind of hard to talk in a Westerners because background's completely different. No experience that, and sometimes just look like stories. Nothing really happens that. It's just it's a different, but Tibetan, Chinese, they believe because background that we have all the story is with Tibetan teachers use this often. It says, if you have a faith from the deep of your heart, even the dog tooth will have a rally come, which is the story of, there was a mother with a son, and he goes every year merchant to India to, those, old times just go to business merchant and goes every times in India. Mother's old, and she's very good practitioner in Buddhism. And the son said, when he went a trip, he said, "Mother, what would you like me to bring from India?" And she said, India, you don't need to bring anything, just bring from anything from Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, because Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was born in Nepal, but he lived all his life, enlightened everything in India, his holy place. Something bring his holy place, and the Buddha never been to Tibet. So the son said, no problem, that's I bring. So he went to merchant, he did all, he was so busy with the business, everything, all of whatever he brings merchant tobacco. And just be on the way, he forgot his mother. So he doesn't know what to do. And he looked around, he saw the dead dog and the bone, head bone. he took the dead dog's tooth and cleaned up nicely and wrapped up and brought to the mother. Said, this is Buddha's tooth. She believed her son. She put it up, worshipped and cleaned, did prostration, and rinse, what is rinse? Relic? Relics came out from the tooth. So her faith, it's not the Buddha, but that's how is exemplary, how faith is strong. So faith is always just, you have a faith your teacher, you have faith your sanghas, your faith is really important, faith. And the faith, there's like I mentioned you, there's like 3 kinds. Ichigitepa, Tamitepa, Ndupitepa, Ichigitepa, 3 kinds. Tamitepa is like, you just like it. And Ichigitepa, believe. You wish for, all those 3. The 1 is a little bit hard, but the 2 we always do that. And so faith is important, believe. So even like faith, this is not exactly same, but even, the 2 partners, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, if they trust each other, everything comes good. If they have some doubt, and then doesn't work. Doubt, blessing doesn't come. That's why it's important to find the right teacher. Once you have it, hold it. Yes. Okay. Do we do any short dedication?
So we'll do page 30 of the dedication, and we'll do His Holiness's long life prayer on page 70. So 31st and then
31? 30, okay.
And then page 70.
Sure.
May we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness, powerful tempting depths of Trinity. May you stay until samsara ends. To all victors, a dance of youth, a tenderly beautiful autumn blooms. May the Guru granting long life, Siddhamata Chakra, here and now bestow the gentle rain of immortal nectar. By the tradition of the reverend Sakya, Manjughosha emanations, the great lotus garden, splendor of well-being, spreading in 100 directions through the power of fearless intention. May your host of good bodily deeds be attained. May you live long, mother of beings, able to lead all the realms of beings, especially Westerners, hosts of beings desiring liberation, intelligent followers on the good path of high birth, liberation, and eternal bliss. By the blessings of oceans of victors of the 3 roots, the power of infallible dependent arising, and errors and emptiness, and the light of the pure intentions of faithful students, may all aspirations easily and quickly be accomplished.
You. In the words of the children saying the word experience, I just trusted, believed. Every night I pray, Tara, to not myself. I was so worried by my sons. It cannot get out from Tibet. If you can't get out, it's finished. Under the Chinese communists, we escaped. So every night I pray and really helped. I had a guide by some dreams guide, as well as some definitions, and a prayer always answered. If withheld my prayer or I didn't trust, I won't be here talking with you. It's fairly do.